of homeschooling and for remote. Not every method for a source control guideline is meant to be 100%. So far, those schools whose numbers start to creep up, they are still within recommendations. Communities, organizations, schools, etc. are far more prepared to contain spread than ever before, and this should also be considered. A few positives is not as risky as considered months ago. Children's educational progress is more important than showing complete and total adherence to every suggestion in the guidelines. So that's, again, a comment from someone on my phone, and we'll keep that in mind as we move along with the discussions. And moving on now, the superintendent.
Can you hear me without the microphone?
Not really.
No. Okay. Thanks, Heather. Okay, here we go. That's much better. I know my voice doesn't carry very well. Tonight I have a few pictures to show you, but before I just want to give you an overview. Schools do look a little bit different than they've looked in the past, and so I've got a few pictures to show you, but overall the reopening I think went very well. The students were actually amazing when I visited the schools. They acted as if they've been wearing masks all of their lives. I think the most memorable thing to me is how happy they were to all be back. The teachers were so happy, and the students were just incredibly happy. When we go through the pictures, you'll see kids with their thumbs up, and when I went into classrooms, I would say, "You teachers are so happy to have you back. How many of you are really happy to be back to school?" And of course, all of the thumbs went up in every single class, all the way through high school, the high school students as well. So I think there's an appreciation of school that's really nice to see. Maybe students, and maybe we've all taken school for granted a little bit in the past, and I think people are very appreciative and are not doing that as much now. I really can't say enough about all of our staff members, our building and maintenance staff, who you'll see the piles of furniture that needed to be moved, and the plexiglass and plastic barriers that needed to be put in place, the cleaning protocols that are taking our staff members a long time, and they're just working very, very hard. Same thing with food service people. Our bus routes as well. In order to make our bus routes work, our transportation director has done every kind of permutation you can imagine to make them work. And of course, the teachers and support staff. I would agree that this is probably the hardest model to operate, and that teachers are spending an incredible amount of time. They're spending a lot of time on the remote aspect of things, and they're also spending a lot of time on the independent activities for students, as well as running 2 separate cohorts. So it is no easy feat, and I think that they're really doing an amazing job, all things considered. So let's just go through the pictures so you can say a few things. Teachers made the students feel so welcome. One of the concerns I think parents had, and I had the same kind of worry, is that if we had students come back to an environment that had masks and plastic and social distancing, would the students really enjoy being there, and how could we make students feel comfortable and safe and happy when they're in school? And I think our teachers have definitely achieved that. So you can see one of our schools had a bag with masks, and it says, you may not be able to read it, but it says, "We can't mask how excited we are to welcome you back." And there were masks in the bag and little things for the students. In another school, I happened upon some books on the bookshelves that they were using to help students become educated about COVID and not worried, but aware. Linda, if you want to go to the next one. This is a little boy who was just happy as a clam on his first day of school wearing his mask, and it's just a great picture. Also, parents, we had to have new procedures so that students would come into the buildings and we wouldn't have people coming in that had, of course, we're trying to limit the number of people that come in, so only students and staff members were going out to cars, meeting our younger students to make sure they safely were escorted into the building. So those procedures were put into place, and I appreciate the patience of parents because I know some of those car lines got pretty long, and I'm sure there was some waiting time for for parents in those lines. So appreciate the patience. Again, practicing healthy habits, just reminders throughout the school, but in a more of a cheerful, I think, just educational way. Here you can see some of the furniture that needed to be stored, and that's just a tiny snapshot of some of the work that our building and maintenance staff has been doing. And here's Pam. She is keeping all of the desks clean and the plastic dividers, and of course they're going through the bathrooms more frequently, doorknobs, surfaces, all of that. They're just working really hard. And thumbs up, they're all happy to be back. Again, more thumbs up. I think there are a few of these. They're just so cute. You can see the distance. Classrooms are looking a bit different than they used to. Desks were much more close together, and you can see the 6 feet between each desk and each student. Again, same situation. And you can see here the social distancing in the hallways. There are stickers on the floors. Again, they're fun. Some of them have the school motto on the stickers, but it gives the children an idea of how far apart they should be. Some of our other schools have arrows. At our high school, you'll see in a little bit how they've managed to divide the hallway. If you go back one, Linda, that is, we are keeping materials separate, so each child has their own, whatever it is, crayons, pencils, blocks, Unifix cubes, they have their own materials. And our teachers have gotten really creative. We're keeping children in cohorts so that we're limiting mixing as much as possible. And you can see teachers are going around on carts. This is a library and media specialist. You'll see one of our music teachers who really has a creative way of getting everything she needs to have on her cart. There it is. So all through the schools, everybody has their own cart that works for them. Our food service, another incredible effort. Right now, the federal government has provided us with the resources to provide free breakfast and lunch to anyone who needs it. So the food service folks are packing individual lunches for all our students that are in school, but they're also packing meals for families that need those meals during the remote days. And there's our wonderful food service ladies. Again, just another picture of a socially distanced classroom with the clear dividers. And this is our nurse at the middle school, and you can see that her nurse's station also has the clear dividers. Cafeteria, again, only 2 students to a table with a clear divider in the middle. And this is one of our speech pathologists, and what she's doing is demonstrating a mask that she's using with some of the students that really need to see how her mouth is working when she's providing speech therapy. So we do have some of those types of masks for teachers and students who need them. And also, we will still be having our traditional activities, but they will be remote. So if you haven't gotten some information in a newsletter, you should check your school's website because we'll still be having open houses and parent conferences. And then last but not least, I just wanted to put the picture of the solar panel in there. You've probably mostly seen pictures that are from a drone, but that's what the solar panel looks like close up, and it's almost completed. There's just a little tiny bit more work that needs to be done, and it will be complete. So I think Effingham's pretty proud of that.
Excellent.
And then just thank you to everyone. This is the kind of situation that requires the cooperation of all involved, and certainly our staff, our students, and our parents have all stepped up to the plate, and it's very much appreciated. So thank you. The next item on the agenda is bass fishing. We have a request for bass fishing. We have a 5-year report that's in the board packet, and this has been a great activity for our students who are participating. Last year, they finished second in the NHIAA state championships, and these are kids who typically don't do other athletic activities, but it gives them a great chance to connect with their peers and to, at the same time, be connected to school outside. I think it's been a fantastic activity. We've seen the numbers grow each year, and I would love to see it recognized as a sport. Based on our policy, this is the year that the board would be deciding whether or not it should be recognized.
And if I can just follow up, that was one of the emails I received just before the meeting from a mother who was very excited that we were bringing this up tonight. And our son has been part of the bass fishing team for the last couple of years, has really benefited tremendously from that. The numbers, obviously, this year for registration were way up. They can only have so many on the team because they only have so many boats and all that to be able to handle the number of kids involved. But a very, very positive experience, and obviously she is hoping that we support the funding of the bass fishing going forward. So, she was very anxious for us to vote on this and hopefully support the activity.
I'll make a motion to support, continue as a funded team sport, bass fishing.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by, let me get you here, Julianne. Seconded by Tim. Okay, any other discussion about the bass fishing? Okay, seeing none, we'll take a roll call vote. Krista? Yes. Julianne?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Dr. Jim? Yes. Jim Pittman?
Abstain.
Abstain, okay. Charlene?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
And chair votes aye. Thank you. Okay, great. Now bass fishing is approved.
All right, great.
Yes, sure.
On the write-up that we got from the athletic director, under the recommendation parts,
Yep.
so he asked for the program to be approved, which we just did, and then it says, it is further recommended that the coach be provided a traditional non-CBA coaching contract in line with other varsity sports in the amount of $3,100. Oh, I'm sorry.
You can start all over if you'd like.
I said the,
Just switch on the top. There you go.
How nice, my lovely voice. We just approved the plan, and it says, after that, it says, the further recommendation that the coach be provided a traditional non-CBA coaching contract in line with other varsity sports in the amount of $3,100. That's part of what's, we'll pick up 60% of that? Is that correct?
Correct.
Yes.
And then they pick up the rest of that?
Correct.
And what is the traditional non-CBA coaching contract?
Well, that's the coaching contract is not part of the regular CBA.
It's not in the back of
it's-
it's not.
No,
No.
because there are certain sports that when the CBA, long before I was here, but when they became a part of the CBA, there was a list, and coaching salaries were negotiated with those. As a new sport comes on, it's not part of the CBA, so it's a separate, it's considered, just as it is in the recommendation, a non-CBA position.
So the next time the contracts are negotiated, does this then become part of the CBA?
It could. If the union wants it to be part of the CBA, then they would say, we'd like to have that part of.
Okay, thank you.
Right now, this is the recommended amount from NHIAA for the most part. So NHIAA sets some of these coaching stipends, and that's where $3,100 comes from. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so bass fishing is moving along.
Okay. Right. So school athletics, I've asked Aaron to be here to discuss one of the things that we were going to discuss was whether or not we wanted our athletes to participate in the tournament. And Aaron is going to talk tonight about how athletics have been going, and I believe he's going to talk about the tournament.
Yes, thank you so much for that support for bass fishing. Great sport. Yeah, the turnout this year was just unbelievable. And just as an add-on, Coach Gagney, who's also our FFA teacher, he wants to run a fishing club as well. So even though we can't accept all 30-plus kids who registered for varsity bass fishing, his hope is to create a fishing club that the kids can then participate in after the fall season, possibly ice fishing, and then again in the spring. So my hope is that the program continues to grow, and the kids get a great lesson on working with the natural environment and the sport of fishing. So again, thank you. So sports has been going pretty good. We've hosted a bunch of different games. We hosted field hockey on Wednesday night against Plymouth. The girls came away with a victory there. Boys soccer hosted Plymouth on Friday night. They too won. Football hosted Guilford on Saturday. They were not able to win, but it was an amazing day, and the social or physical distancing guidelines that we asked fans and spectators to adhere to, for the most part, were adhered to. And it does look different, and it feels different, but what can't be replaced, or what doesn't feel different, is the passion of what the kids are doing out there in the field and representing their school and their community. So I guess where we go from here tonight ultimately is at the board meeting where we presented, on August 24th, where the board had said you would like to have, that final say as far, whether or not our kids could go to these open tournaments. And this meeting couldn't have come at a better time, as the first survey is actually due tomorrow. The NHIAA has sent out surveys for all of their sports, and basically just asking schools, are you going to participate in the open tournament? I do have a list of those dates. Football is due tomorrow. Field hockey is due Wednesday. Boys soccer, girls soccer, and volleyball are due on the 15th, so next week. And there's not much really to those surveys, just whether or not you'll be attending so that they can get to work ultimately for the seeding of the tournament. What that means for you folks in terms of understanding what you would possibly be approving tonight is we would be leaving our Lakes region bubble, possibly. We could end up playing a team that is not in the bubble, and my recommendation at this point is to allow the kids to participate, but again, that's my recommendation. So that is where we are tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about where we are as an athletic department. But if you've driven through campus over the last couple of weeks, the fields look full, and the kids are having a really good time. And I think the next step is allowing them to participate in their respective postseasons.
Questions? Go ahead, Shirlene. Up top.
Oh, up top? I think it's, is that on? Yeah.
Yes.
The question I have goes back to a discussion we had at a previous board meeting. Are all of our student athletes who normally would be required to use mouth guards currently using mouth guards?
Your question is about mouth guards, whether or not kids are wearing them?
My question is, are all students, are all of our athletes who would normally in non-COVID times be required to use mouth guards, are all of our student athletes using mouth guards?
We're requiring our student athletes to wear mouth guards in those sports in which they're mandated. Right now, that is football and field hockey. Any other sport would be optional and left to the parent or the student athlete to make that decision.
So you're saying that it's only football and field hockey that are requiring athletes to wear mouth guards?
Those are the only two sports happening right now requiring students to wear mouth guards, yes.
Okay, let me ask the question a different way. When you say currently, is that specific because of COVID-19?
I'm sorry?
My question is, well, let me rephrase it. In the past, prior to COVID-19, were mouth guards only mandated for football and field hockey?
As discussed at the last board meeting, the only sport that is not currently wearing mouth guards that were required to wear them before COVID-19 was soccer, boys and girls soccer. Those two sports are no longer required, and we've left that as an option to the parents. I do see some kids wearing them. I couldn't give you a head count as to how many kids are actually wearing them.
Okay, I'm sorry I missed the last board meeting. I was out of state. So am I correct that in the history of NHIAA, the only sports where they have ever required mouth guards have been football and field hockey? Or have they required mouth guards for other sports in the past?
Well, right now we're talking about fall sports. Other sports do require them, ice hockey and lacrosse.
And basketball?
And basketball, yep, that's a winter sport. So I'm not an NHIA historian. I don't know what the full history is on mouth guards. All I know is that boys soccer and girls soccer has been mandated in the past.
It has been mandated in the past.
Correct.
And that's a fall sport, correct?
Correct, but it's no longer mandated.
And you're saying that it's not being required now?
It's no longer mandated. It's not a rule.
Why is it no longer mandated?
You'd have to talk to the NHIAA and the NFHS. I think they had
Maybe
concerns.
Jack can answer that.
Shirlene, that was a vote that was taken by the NHIAA Council earlier on, that was not going to be required for this year. And that, again, it was a vote by the council. There's 22 or 24 members in the council, superintendents, athletic directors, et cetera, and it was after a full discussion, they voted that those two, the field hockey and football, would be the only two required fall sports for mouth guards, and it would be optional for soccer.
So the rationale that you said it was the commission, NHIAA,
The council that sits around the table.
So was the rationale that playing soccer no longer posed any kind of risk of concussion?
Yeah,
or was it strictly for
I'd have to provide the
COVID-19?
minutes for I have to get the minutes for you to really discuss exactly what the rationale. I can't remember exactly all the discussion at that point.
But it was most likely
much earlier on in the year.
But it sounds to me as if those sports normally in the past have been required to use mouth guards, and for some reason this year they decided not to.
Right.
So is it reasonable to assume it's because of COVID-19?
It could very well be, but again, I'd have to get the information for you, and I can certainly ask them to send you the information for that.
Is it possible for a school district to require the use of mouth guards even though the NHIA is not requiring it?
Sure. Sure. We have the flexibility as a school district to say, you know, we'll go, some things you can do, like scheduling, you can't change the scheduling that's set by NHIAA for certain things. But if they come out with a rule like this and you want to be more strict in your process, as a school district, you can certainly do that.
I would,
because it's optional for the parents now. If they want their children to wear them, they can. We could make it mandatory if we wanted to.
well, because of the fact that I don't believe the sports have changed significantly from a year ago, so that the use of mouth guards would be contraindicated, and since they you know, have been shown to reduce the impact of concussions, I think that we would be remiss in not requiring mouth guards for sports that have required mouth guards in the past, unless there's some compelling medical reason that the use of mouth guards would be contraindicated. So,
and again, I think probably the right thing to do would be to request that the rationale that they used at the council meeting. Again, I don't remember all the discussion, but find out what that rationale was and see if that fits or not, and then we can certainly make that decision here.
well, has the soccer season started? It has, hasn't it?
Yes. When does the soccer season end, Aaron?
Approximately 3 weeks.
Okay. And okay, so the soccer season ends in about 3 weeks.
I was going to say, the season will be over by the time we meet again to make a decision, won't it?
Yeah, probably. I think right now, you know, Aaron is going by the NHIAA guidelines and leaving it up to the parents to take that position, whether they want to live by the NHIAA guidelines or take the option of having their children wear mouth guards. If right now it's not a requirement, I think we're leaving the parents to make that decision, and I don't think that's an incorrect option on our part.
You know, we're in the position of having the responsibility of trying to do everything we can to keep our students safe, and I feel strongly enough about this that I move that we require all of our students, all of our student athletes to wear mouth guards if they've been required in the past, including soccer.
I'll second that.
Okay, moved by Shirlene, seconded by Tim. Okay, discussion. Jim? There you go.
Hello? There. The most serious injury I ever saw in my career was the avulsion of a tooth during a soccer game. I wondered at the last meeting, Shirlene, when this was brought up, I asked why. They said, well, they changed it because there's no so much worry about concussion. Well, I understand that, but that's not the only reason you wear mouth guards. And the girl who I did this to, she lost the tooth permanently. I don't think it's a fair way of saying that. If she had a mouth guard, would it have prevented it? Not necessarily, but at least it could have mitigated it to some extent. So I'm in favor of doing what Shirlene wants to do.
Okay, additional comments on Shirlene's motion? Okay, the motion is to require all boys and girls currently in the soccer program to wear mouth guards. Is that correct, Shirlene?
Yes.
For the balance of the season. Okay, any other discussion? Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Krista?
Yes.
Julianne?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Dr. Jim? Jim Pittman?
Yes.
Charlene?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
And Chair will vote yes. So, Aaron, the vote is unanimous that it's going to be required that all students playing soccer will have to wear mouth guards.
Got it.
Thank you.
Do you know of, Aaron, any other teams coming up, whether winter or spring, that we could run into the same situation?
I don't know.
No? Okay.
Okay, anything else? Yes, Jim Pittman.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. I'm on. Okay. Getting back to, I think, what is probably the biggest piece of business that you have here is the expansion of our bubble, as you expressed, outside of our local area to engage with others. I'm curious what criteria you're depending, or whoever may be responsible for evaluating the risk involved. If you've been following the news recently, we're starting to see an upsurge in the state and the country. Nashua and Manchester are now red zone cities. And as was pointed out earlier by a young lady, we have been in a very comfortable position here in that we have been relatively untouched. But if we go out into the greater community, it would appear to me that there's a risk. And I'm wondering how we're quantifying that.
It's tough to quantify because you just don't know who you're going to pull, you know, in the first round or second round. Obviously, if you win, you continue to move on. I think at this point, as far as athletic directors speaking to each other and understanding each other's protocols, practice protocols, game day protocols, we've been communicating that now with a couple of the games that we've started. A lot of us have been sharing our Spectator Guidelines, also guidelines and expectations of teams when they arrive. So for example, a lot of athletic directors, including myself, we are checking the student athletes before they leave campus. We're asking them, you know, all those COVID questions that we've all become so accustomed to now, and then we're taking their temperature. We're then signing a letter to the game day administrator of the other school saying that these students have been checked, and at the time that we checked them, they had no COVID symptoms. Many schools are accepting that letter. Some schools would still like to check the kids upon arrival. Very few seem to be doing that. So there are, you know, protocols in place for every school. I think some schools probably are a little more strict than others. I know some schools, you know, there's a couple that are playing everybody right now and are not wearing masks for a sport like volleyball. Right now, we are requiring our volleyball players to wear masks, not just for practices, but also in their upcoming games. So I think we're having the conversation amongst athletic directors, and ultimately we're an extension of the principals. So there isn't something that I do that Mr. Donnelly doesn't know about, and I would imagine that's the case with most athletic directors in the state. So until we see where it falls and who you play in that first round, it's really tough to understand. Now, some districts in some areas of the state have been hit harder than others, obviously. So that's something that we would have to weigh if we find ourselves, and I don't want to name a school district here, but if we were to find ourselves playing a district in the first round that's had a lot of cases, you know, what do we do there? And I think that would be a conversation for myself and superintendent and the principal to have.
Okay, thank you. And just one quick question then. Would you see a possibility where the judgment might be to decline to engage with another school because of some evaluation that the risk was too high?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other comments? So what we're really looking for is a motion to approve participation in the open tournament format. I think that's what Aaron is looking for.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, so let's see, Julianne's going to make a motion. This is a motion to approve the athletic department to participate in the open format, open tournament format for this year. Again, that's a modification, obviously, of the NHIAA rules and setups where we may not be playing somebody within our own division, or because of the number of schools that are actually participating in sports this year.
I'll second.
Okay, it's been moved by Julianne, seconded by Tim. Okay, any other discussion on allowing the sports program to participate in the open tournament format? Okay, I'll take, go ahead, Shirlene.
I just want to make sure I understood this correctly. Did you say that there are teams that may not have quite as stringent a protocol as other teams that we might be playing?
Yeah, I mean, every district is different, whether it's athletics or academics or anything. So there's some schools that, there's no one that I fear playing right now in terms of protocols that I've seen, but, you know, again, volleyball would be the example. I sent a survey out to Division II athletic directors about volleyball specifically to understand where they were on masks. And the results that I got back, I had 14 of the 18 schools respond. 10 of those schools are not requiring masks when they're playing the game. 3 schools are. We are one of those schools. When I asked the question, would you be willing to wear masks if you find yourself playing a school like us, where we require the kids to wear masks, and by the way, we also require our opponents that come into our building to wear masks for the volleyball matches. 9 of those 14 schools said yes, they would consider wearing masks if it meant that they might not be able to play, or worse, we would have to forfeit a first-round game. So that's one example, Shirlene, of just volleyball, but you know, everyone, I think, is doing what they think is in the best interest of their community.
So a follow-up, is it possible for our students to only play other teams that follow our same protocol?
No, that wouldn't be possible because...
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Aaron, is it also true, though, in the open format, that right now they're looking for a yes or no if we're going to participate in the open format process? If we're in that and we feel uncomfortable playing a particular team, can't we drop out of the tournament?
I believe that's an option. I also believe, you know, there could be some shuffling that goes on too if it's something that you know, is just a school that we refuse to play because we're concerned about cases in their district. I think my first thing, as opposed to dropping out and not giving the kids a chance, would be to appeal to the NHIAA and see if there's any way they could possibly reshuffle the bracket.
Yeah.
You know, I want to try to get the kids to play. They've worked hard, and that postseason is really the next thing for them.
Yeah, and I understand the whole idea that is, you know, if the students want to participate in a tournament, it's great to have them participate in a tournament. Safety obviously is going to be you know, a critical piece of that. So we want that option to maybe not, like Shirlene said, not participate if we get to a point in the tournament where we don't feel safe having our children there. Okay, any other discussion on the allowing the athletic department to send in the participation notices to NHIAA for the open tournaments in the various sports? Okay, Krista?
Yes.
Julianne?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Dr. Jim? Yes. Jim Pittman?
Yes.
Charlene?
No.
Dana?
Yes.
And chair votes yes. 7-1. It's approved. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.
All right, next is after-school activities. I had some discussion with our administrators, and they are looking forward to providing after-school activities for our students, both at the elementary level through the middle school and the high school. The activity leaders, I think, want to continue to provide the activities that we've had in the past with the public health precautions that we've put in place. One potential concern was the transportation and whether the transportation department would be able to do the additional runs that might be required by additional participation after school, because as you know, we're only having 13 students to a bus because of the 6-foot distancing. And Marianne said that her staff is ready to do the additional runs if in fact we end up needing them, which I thought was awesome. And that's just another example of each department working really hard to provide the best thing for our students. So I think we're ready to go if the board is of a mind to approve that.
How are we doing with staffing for some of these after-school activities as far as teachers and teachers?
The teachers, the majority of the teachers that have traditionally done these activities are interested in doing them.
Okay.
So as long as we don't have other absenteeism problems, and I'll talk about that in a little while,
Yep.
but right now it's okay.
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 What do we need for that?
It's up to you whether you want to take a vote or just.
Do we want to have a motion to allow, and maybe that's a good thing. I think people are asking about, after-school activities, are they going to happen? Aren't they going to happen? Obviously, some traditionals, again, depending on numbers and all, might not be able to happen. But I think maybe it would be nice if the board supported the notion of providing after-school activities for those clubs and students that want to participate, same way as we've authorized the sports programs for those students that want to participate. So I think it would be a good idea from our standpoint to say, yes, let's move forward with the after-school programs that are possible.
Jack,
Krista?
if I could just
Yes.
mention that I would also want to make sure that with any of the after-school programs that we put in all of the same safety precautions that we've put in place for any other activities. I know that, for example, our theater folks are really going to want to look forward to doing theater productions, but in order to do those, we're going to have to carefully think that out and make sure that all of the safety precautions are put into place. And I know that the folks involved with theater are thinking about that right now, but I would just want it to be with the understanding that all the precautions are in place.
Okay. Kristen?
I want the after-school activities to begin as soon as possible, but my question is, if art club is offered, would it be offered to both cohort A and cohort B?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that might create some scheduling difficulties. So I'm not sure exactly how we would do that. If we have two sessions, or if we have one session, the A and B, with the A group, and then the next week it's with the B group. But we will make sure that it gets offered to both.
Thank you.
Okay, in light of that, do I have any motion to approve and move forward with after-school activities? Jim Pittman moves.
Second.
Moved by Charlene. Second by Charlene, rather. Okay, so the motion on the floor is to approve moving forward with the after-school activities. Those in favor are Krista?
Yes.
Julianne?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Dr. Jim? Yes. Jim Pittman?
Yes.
Charlene?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
And chair votes aye as well. Excellent. Thank you very much.
So our next update is on school enrollment. Our total school enrollment for this year is 2,268 students. But it's really interesting. I want to mention a couple of things. We have this year about 150 more homeschool students than we would have had if not for COVID-19. So if you add those students to our total, and that's not counting the students that we know will be staying or are very likely to stay homeschooled because they've been homeschooled for a long time, we would have had an increase, and we would have had 2,418 students, which is a significant increase over our number of 2,241 students last year. So I just thought that was really interesting. If you figure the homeschool students, we would actually be seeing an increase in our schools.
Oh, interesting. Do you have the breakdown by schools that you can?
I don't have that with me.
Okay. Is that something you could email
Sure.
to us? Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay, and next is budget. What's on deck for budget is October 20th, 21st, and 22nd. Kathy O'Blenis and myself will be meeting with the school administrators, with each administrator to discuss the proposed budget for each school and for special education, as well as the overall district. On November 17th, 18th, and 19th, each principal and special education director will discuss the recommended budget with the Finance Committee of the school board. On Monday, December 7th, is the preliminary budget adoption. Monday, January 11th, is the final budget adoption hearing. And then the other important dates are January 12th is the last. Sorry, I keep going in and out. Sorry about that. January 12th is the last day for collective bargaining. January 12th is also the last day for petition warrant articles. January 25th, last day to post the warrant, budget, and default budget. And then January 2nd to the 29th are filing dates for school district officers. The really important day for the budget is the deliberative session on January 30th, and then, of course, voting on March 9th.
Quick question on the Finance Committee meetings. Are we going to have enough room at Crescent Lake Library for social distancing, or should we plan on maybe doing that here as well?
I don't know. Let me check out the square footage, and
Okay. I mean, there's only...
we may need to do it here.
Yeah, there's only, 5 of us at the table, usually
Right.
3 board members and yourself and Kathy O'Blenis maybe. And then, where, especially where the elementary school principals are there all at the same time.
Right.
They could probably sit,
Right.
spread out, but,
There's generally 5 of them at one time, and then
yeah.
5 the next. So
I mean, it
between us,
doesn't really matter
yeah.
one way or the other. And it's not the same thing as far as the preliminary budget hearing at Carpenter School. That's usually a big enough area, as long as the board can be separated enough in the front of the gymnasium there. We may have to do it the opposite direction and, have us lengthwise on the gym and do it that way to social distance, but... Okay.
And that's probably something we want to talk about at the end of the meeting too, where if we want to start having our meetings throughout the district at this point.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, we don't need a lot of space out there, but it's whether we can social distance enough as a board
Right.
to separate ourselves out. Okay. Okay, exciting. And I think just for everybody to notice, I know it's on the bottom of the page here, the board members that are up for re-election this year, Tim Eldridge, at-large member, Julianne Cardinal, the New Durham School Board member, and myself as the Tuftonboro School Board member. We're all up in March of 2021. Okay.
Okay. Next item is a couple of weeks ago, I received an anonymous letter that was addressed to the superintendent and the chair of the school board. And I just wanted to address it here because I'm not sure how many parents have maybe some of the same thoughts. And I just want to make sure that people have accurate information. The author of the letter heard that some children were allowed to be in school 4 days a week because their parents requested it, because they did not do well with remote learning, or because the parents worked at the school. And so I thought it would really be important to address this tonight. We do have some students who are in school 4 days a week who are special education students, and that's based on their individual education plans. Most of them are receiving services like speech and language therapy, OT, physical therapy, those kinds of things on their additional days. And then we have a very few other students who have learning difficulties who are provided with the in-person services for more than 2 days due to their learning profile. And this was all established by a rubric working with the curriculum director and the special education director. So I just wanted to make it clear to folks that it wasn't based on a parent request or based on students not doing well in remote education. It was actually thought out in advance to make sure that our students who were at academic disadvantage had the opportunity to receive more services. So, and I did receive also an anonymous letter earlier in the year, and I would just ask folks, I'm very approachable, and if you have a concern, it's very hard for me to address it if the letter is anonymous. So please make an appointment, stop in to see me, give me a phone call, because it's so much better to have a conversation, and I can provide factual information for you. The next is, I should also, there's another piece to this. The Lakes Region Technology Center for a number of years has run a curriculum program for future teachers, and it's been run with Magic Moments Preschool. We have not been able to run that this year because of COVID, so we were concerned about students not having the opportunity to do their work with students as a part of the program and develop the competencies they need to have. So Bruce Farr reached out to the teacher, and they developed a program for students that are elementary aged, so that there would be 2 days a week that students could come in, the younger students, so that our high school students could work with them. And these are students of faculty members. However, the faculty members are paying the going rate for childcare. So it's a win-win both for faculty and for our students who otherwise would not be able to have the opportunity to work with students as a part of their program. So I just wanted to make sure that folks knew what that was about. And then next item is...
Kathy,
Sure.
can I... while Kathy was talking, I just got a phone call and a voice message from Dr. Nelson, who's the boys varsity coach. And he was very, very concerned about the vote we took about the mouth guards. And he stated, he made a presentation to the NHIAA soccer committee about the concerns of using mouth guards because of the risk of infection. Kids taking them in and out constantly during the game because they're not in their mouths all the time, and he's more concerned about the infection process taking the mouth guards in and out rather than those kids not wearing them, especially in this COVID-19 era. So he's very concerned that we may be causing more problems by requiring mouth guards than not requiring them. As the boys coach, he's made that presentation to NHIAA and would like that brought up tonight in light of the vote that we've taken. I want to just put that on the table, that he's more concerned about the health risks and safety risks using mouth guards than not using mouth guards. So we can come back to that after Kathy finishes her presentation, but I think it's certainly worth, here's somebody that, he's a doctor, he's a coach, and he is very concerned about the health risk. Shirlene.
I guess my response to his concern is that, I mean, obviously I appreciate his concern about students taking mouth guards in and out, but I think the same could be said about our athletes who are participating in football and field hockey as well. Right. And so, to me, you know, the reason to use them is medically well documented, and I don't think that if we use that rationale, then I think we would say, well, heck, we don't need mouth guards for anybody, and I'm not prepared to do that.
I'm just bringing his concerns as a professional, a doctor and a coach to the board in light of the vote that we've taken. If we want to stick with the vote we've taken, that's perfectly fine. This is his concern that he wanted us to discuss. Okay, Kathy?
Before we move on, Kathy, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
When kids are coming 4 days a week because of their learning style or because of having special learning needs, so they're getting OT or PT or speech or whatever it is. Do they only need to focus on doing core curricular work, or do they have to like do the makeup of what they would miss? How does that work? I know how it would work if they were in school, but now there are remote days, so do they have to do the makeup on remotes, or are they simply excused from things?
Well, they would actually be in for the 4 days, so there wouldn't be any. Oh, I see what you're saying. There are additional activities.
Yeah, because they're getting pulled for.
Right. But they would also be working with special education teachers. So the special education teachers would be assisting them with those activities.
Okay, so they wouldn't have to make up like art or music or.
No.
Okay.
No, because they would have already had that in their first session.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the metric, and as you'll all recall, you asked me to put together a metric as a way of helping us look at the continuum of services and fully in-person school, the hybrid model, and remote. And so what I did was I really used the CDC guidelines and the DHHS guidelines and combined them. It was clear to me, though, after combining them, that even the CDC guidelines and DHHS were insufficient for our purposes, because not only do you need to consider quantitative data, you need to consider qualitative data as well. So we have in the metric the recommendations of the CDC, the 3 core indicators to help deciding which direction to go in, and that's number of cases per 100,000, % of positive tests, and self-assessment of implementation of key mitigation strategies. And then CDC also suggests consideration of secondary indicators, for example, number of hospitalizations, number of positive cases by county, and number of cases in school. The CDC does caution that if a school meets all core indicators and many secondary indicators, a case or cases of COVID-19 may still occur in a school among students, teachers, administrators, and other staff. As a result, falling into a category of being lower or lowest risk of transmission does not mean that the school should relax adherence to the mitigation strategies. And I think that plays an important role in the decision that the board has to make tonight, or doesn't have to make tonight, but probably at some point will want to make. So after reviewing the CDC core and secondary indicators and in consultation with our area experts and our local guidance, the things that I just mentioned have been included in the metric. In developing this, I did consult with both Dr. Noble and Dr. Bernasian. So in addition to the things that I've just listed, there is, for the level of school impact, staff absenteeism, student absenteeism, number of positive cases within the schools, which I've already mentioned, and number and frequency of school closing. The other factors to be considered, and this is under more qualitative data than quantitative, are staff absences impacting the ability to effectively supervise and instruct students? Are student absences impacting the ability of students to learn effectively in the current model? Are we able to implement all mitigation strategies? What is the overall impact of bringing students back full-time on staffing? How many more staff members would we need to continue mitigation strategies if fully in person? Can we provide transportation if we're fully in person and continue distancing? And then last, and probably not as important as all the others, is what is the impact on the budget? So if you look at where we are right now in terms of the quantitative information, everything does, as people have said tonight, everything does look really good. We're in most categories, we're in the lowest risk of transmission in schools. Same thing for the mitigation strategies, because we are implementing the mitigation strategies at this point very faithfully. If you look at the school impact, our absenteeism right now for students is very low absenteeism. We haven't had any school closings. Where we're beginning to see some of the impact is around the staff members who are being tested. At this point, we've had 10 staff members who have been quarantined, and the quarantine is from anywhere from 14 to 24 days. We are fortunate. Thank you. Okay. Okay. All right. We'll try number 3. Hopefully this will be. I'm beginning to think it's me and microphones. So staff absenteeism, that's where it's beginning to show a little bit, because we have had 10 people who have, need to be out for an extended period of time. It's not in any one school, it's not in any one area, it's not mostly teachers, it's across the district and across the departments. So when I think about us coming back fully, I certainly would love to have all of our students here full-time, and I recognize that this is certainly the most difficult model to implement. I'm quite sure the students would like to be here full-time. I'm quite sure the teachers would like to be here full-time. But in order to do that, we would need to not implement one of our primary mitigation strategies. Our 3 strongest mitigation strategies are mask wearing, social distancing, and our air recirculation, our HVAC system. In order to bring back students fully in person, we would not be able to implement the 6-foot CDC social distancing guideline, and that does concern me. We wouldn't be able to do that in the classrooms. We wouldn't be able to do that on the buses. So I did talk with Dr. Noble and Dr. Bernasian about this, because obviously I understand that there are families do have child care problems. I understand that we want our kids here. We want to educate them and give them as much as we possibly can academically, so I'm concerned about them not being here. On the other hand, I'm also concerned about bringing them in and not having them with proper social distancing guidelines, since that is such a strong mitigating factor. So, and the response I got from each of the physicians was, particularly Dr. Bernasian, is that with flu season coming, this is probably he said this is not the opportune time to be eliminating a mitigation strategy. And his feeling is at this point, along with Dr. Noble, he was consulted as well, at this point that the hybrid model makes sense until we see a little bit more about what the trajectory of the virus is going to be. So given that, my recommendation is that we stay in the hybrid model at this point, and that I think that it would also be useful for folks to have some sense of what's going to be happening in the next 2 months, rather than thinking, are we going to be hybrid for these 2 weeks and then fully in school for these 2 weeks? I think it would be helpful for people to know and understand what's coming in the future. So I would recommend that we stay in the hybrid model through December. So I know you're going to want to discuss that.
Okay, sure, discussion, Shirlene.
Do I need to make a motion first? Are we
You
just going to
can
discuss?
either make a motion, you can discuss, you can do whatever you'd like to do.
Well, I would like to make a motion that we follow the superintendent's recommendation and maintain our hybrid model through December.
Okay. It's been moved by Shirlene and seconded by Jim Pittman. Okay, so the motion on the floor is to support the superintendent's recommendation to continue with the hybrid model for the balance of this calendar year through December, to be reevaluated, I think, at our December meeting to see where we are at that point in time, and see if it makes sense to look at an alternate process maybe after the beginning of the year. I know sometimes this is a very difficult decision for everybody, and I think stability for the families that are trying to get their lives somewhat organized right at this point is kind of critical. Not knowing whether we're going to be jumping from one thing to another 1 week after another, I think is very, very difficult. This at least gives them some guidance for where we're going to be from now until the end of the calendar year, and people can adjust accordingly. So that's what's on the floor. Discussion. Anyone?
Jack, if I could just
ahead.
add a couple of things that I didn't mention when I made the recommendation. I was on a call with the Commissioner of Education and some other superintendents last week, and some schools are closing after the holidays, both in November and in December, and I certainly am not recommending that, but their thinking about it is that families are going to be traveling and they're not going to adhere to the guidelines of being in state. And I just think that's another thing to think about, that, we could have more risk as a result of that. And the other thing that is happening is on Thursday, Boston was identified as a red zone, as well as the communities of Lowell, Lawrence, North Andover, Revere, Methuen, and some of those are pretty close to the New Hampshire border. So, if you look at the trajectory, the numbers have been higher over the last few days. So all of that put together makes me think that it would be a mistake to take away any mitigation strategies right now.
Julianne?
So I'm an advocate of the kids going back to school full-time. What I would want to know is what has to happen to make that happen? I mean, what's going to affect our decision in December to allow the kids to go back to full-time if we support the school district now as in the model that we're in?
Julianne, I think by December we'll have had an idea of flu season will have started, and we'll have been indoors for a while. I think there's a transition going on now from being outside, where the virus doesn't transmit as easily outside, but we're all going to be inside now. And I think another couple of months is going to give us a much better idea of what the trajectory of the virus is going to be. So I think if we were to see a situation like right now where the numbers are not going up, where they've been stable for a period of time, I think that would mean we could take a look at, and I still wouldn't want to dismiss the mitigating factors altogether. I mean, I think we'd want to take a look at maybe could we do 3-foot distancing and have everybody feel, be safe.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it is critical that, we have flu season right upon us as well, and how that's going to affect everybody, considering we've got COVID-19, we've got the flu season coming up. This is going to be a challenging time, I think, for everybody this fall, and I think this is a smart decision to move forward. And I think the superintendent's right. By December we'll have a better idea of where we are with COVID-19, where we are with vaccination, where we are with the flu season, and how that's affected people as well. So I think it's a good idea to extend it out to the end of December.
One other piece of information from the hospital, right now they're looking to have rapid testing, which would really help us as well. If we had a really solid system of rapid testing, I think that would make a difference for our staff and our students. They're looking to have that probably not for another month at the earliest, but they should have it, certainly by the end of December.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Pittman?
Yeah, I'm in support of this. We're 3 weeks into the school year, and we've been very fortunate. That's gone quite well in terms of we've had no big outbreaks or anything like that, but I don't think that should make us complacent to the risk that is still present. And if we look at the statistical data of the last few weeks, we're seeing the numbers go up. They're not skyrocketing, but they are moving up. And we're just at the beginning of that period where we will be now living indoors. So I think we need to listen to that early indication and not let our guard down too quickly. So I'm in support of this.
Thank you. Shirlene?
I agree that we have been very fortunate so far, but we did just vote to approve our student athletes expanding beyond our bubble. And I think that, that's another thing that we're going to have to pay very close attention to. And so there are a lot of factors, being indoors, having students now expanding after-school activities and whatnot. And all of those things are going to come with some risk. And I think that I just really feel that it's prudent at this time to kind of take a wait-and-see attitude and see how the trajectory in our county and in the state moves in the next couple of months.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I agree with Julianne that having a child in school, nothing's better than having them in school. And obviously, the numbers are low right now. We have the ability to back to hybrid or even full remote. When does the quarter end?
The trimester ends at the beginning. The trimester ends at the beginning of December. I don't have the date of the end of the quarter in my head. So I can get that to you.
I would certainly be in favor of moving forward with introducing the students back in, and just, with everyone understanding that it potentially could revert back to what we've got going. The numbers are for us, for Carroll County, are staying low. So that's my thought.
Jack?
Yes, Jim.
Nashua and Manchester were classified as red zones today. CDC did it. So they're already classified as being in the red zone. The other thing is this, looking at the numbers, I know that Wolfeboro is not a 0 and 1 through 4.
Those numbers were as of September 30th, and they have changed.
Wolfeboro's been at least 8 or 10 total cases, not 1 to 4.
Right. Like I said, those numbers have changed.
So the thing is, the changes are occurring. The other thing is this, we're insisting that we have social distancing and masks and so forth. There's no way we're going to, if you double the number of students in the classroom, you're going to have to reduce the social distancing. And that's a parameter that once you reduce it, you can't go back. Or you can go back, but then you're going to have chaos. I know it is not easy for anybody to have this happening, but I got news for you. The alternative is a lot worse. I really don't want to go there.
Yeah, I think the question is, if we did bring all the students back, there are certain things, there'd be no social distancing on buses. There'll be no social distancing for the most part in classrooms. 3 feet is not, I mean, there's 3 feet. You're not really social distancing much. Those are some of the things that we have to deal with and that we have to accept as part of the risk. And I don't know if we really want to do that at this point in time. Do we want to say, wear your mask, that's really all you need to do? Because everything else is pretty much off the table because we don't have the room on the buses or the classrooms to do the social distancing piece that everybody's requiring or that's suggesting. So that's part of what when we do go back full time, we have to do it with the understanding that it's pretty much everything's back to normal. And I don't think within a couple of weeks everything's back to normal. So again, especially with we don't know what the flu season is going to bring. Obviously, the numbers for COVID is down or low. They're remaining low, but where are we going to be in the next several weeks once the flu season really takes hold?
Well, and that's my fear. Back in August, that's the unknown. We weren't sure what things were going to look like. The start of September. Well, now we've seen what that looks like, and thankfully it wasn't as bad as it was kind of projected to be. I would hate for us to, in no better terms, but waste time not having the students back with the potential that, yes, we know that the flu season's coming and there may be a potential of having to shut the schools down or go to back to the hybrid model. But I would just hate to keep dragging our heels only to find in December that, maybe this is going to be worse then. And if that's the case, then we'll probably be closed down at that point. But we've lost this time that we potentially could be back in.
And I don't see it as dragging our heels. I really don't. I see that I really like the metric. I really like following the metric. I like, obviously, that we're at the low-risk area. My only concern is, like with Jim, it's only been 3 weeks. And if we were looking at this at a 6 or an 8 week mark and we were like that, I probably would jump fully on board with you. I just think the duration of time we've had to test this out has been too short to take the risk to come back full time.
Could we, instead of December, look at this metrics for the next board meeting? That would give us the 6 weeks or so that thereabouts.
So that would require me withdrawing my motion and the person who seconded it withdrawing their second? Is that what you're asking?
Well, we're in the discussion, but yes, theoretically that would have to happen.
My thought on that is, if we were looking to do that, and I need a minute to think it through, at the November board meeting, I would think we would have to come up and say something like that we would start coming back after Thanksgiving. And the reason I say that, and I know people will be traveling and everything, but if you haven't been into any of the buildings to see how high the desks and chairs and everything is piled, there's got to be a block of time that the school can be put back together again. Mm-hmm. And that's not going to be over a weekend, and it's not going to be overnight time. There'll have to be a block of time that's a transition time to have people put the school back together again. So that's just what, something else for us to think about as we're looking when we go back to school. I don't think we'd want to shut down school for a week to put school back together. So there's another layer of consideration.
Yeah.
Good, Shirlene.
But doesn't that get us back into the same concerns about families who've traveled and coming back from traveling out of state or, abroad. And,
I think it does.
that's one of the reasons why I'm concerned about, say, a November target.
Well, it's a November reconsideration.
Oh.
I was seeing it as a November reconsideration instead of saying we'll come back after the Christmas break. We're saying we'll reconsider it again in November to see if that's all I was saying.
I'd love-
Jim Pittman first. Jim.
Oh, thank you. Just to sort of piggyback on to the vector of this conversation, and I don't want to speak for Kathy, but I think I heard you say one of the advantages of this was that whether you like it or not, it would at least give some stability to know that for the next few months, this is our course. So people can plan accordingly. And again, you might think it's the right idea, you might think it's a wrong idea, but at least it would be a consistent idea. And as Krista also pointed out, it's very difficult to swing the pendulum from one end to the other too quickly. So good to stay on a steady course, I think.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah. I just fear that we're making a decision on a what if. I mean, we delayed the start of school because we were worried about motorcycle weekend, and we probably didn't need to do that. We probably could have started school on time. There's other schools that have been going full-time near us since, the end of August, the beginning of September, and those students have a bigger advantage than our students have had. Our students are going 2 days a week, remote learning 1 day. I just worry that if we delay this decision to December or January, we'll delay it again, and it'll keep lingering. At some point, we have to move forward.
Yeah, at this point, we keep introducing things, the sports, the after-school activities, and I really do think that we just got to face the reality and move forward, just with the understanding that if things start to go south again, then we take the steps back that we need to. As a parent, and talking with some of the other parents, I understand, let's give them that goal. This is what we're shooting for. But knowing that they're struggling every day with the childcare, with helping their students at home, with the remote learning, I think that we've got to, as a school board, shorten that time span and say, look, we understand, but we will be moving forward.
Okay, any other discussion on this? I certainly respect everybody's opinion on this issue. I understand where everybody's coming from. I personally am not in favor of risking the health of our students right at this point, saying, well, we'll bring them all back, and then if it gets worse, it just gets worse, and we'll revert back to something different. And doing away with a lot of the guidelines that are in place to protect them and keep them safe. So that's just my opinion. I think I don't mind, certainly wouldn't mind revisiting the process at our November meeting to see where we are and where things are at that point in time. We'll be into the middle of flu season and to see how that affects everybody else going forward, along with the COVID-19 issues that are out there. And we can certainly look at it again at the November meeting, but right now I'd suggest moving forward with the December 30th, December 31st date. That's my personal opinion. So, okay, any other discussion? Okay, the motion on the floor then is to support the superintendent's recommendation to continue with the hybrid model through the end of December. That's the motion on the floor. Okay, we'll take a roll call vote. Krista?
Yes.
Julianne?
No.
Tim?
No.
Dr. Jim? Jim Pittman?
Yes.
Charlene?
Yes.
Dana?
No.
And chair votes yes. 5-3. Okay, so we are right now, and I don't mind having this back on the agenda in November. If it means to take a separate vote to change the time frame, that's perfectly fine. But I think right now we've voted to continue the hybrid plan until the end of the year. Okay.
Can I add something? For the meeting in November, can we have a plan outlined for the reopening of school? What that would look like?
Sure, yeah.
Just so you know, my phone obviously has been blowing up since we started this discussion. And I will go back and look at some of these. Are a lot of emails and text messages from Dr. Nelson and Dr. Koppenhaver, who worked with him to put together the presentation for NHIAA and the risks or not risks of using the mouth guards. They've also sent me a PowerPoint, but I don't know how to put it from my phone up onto the screen, so I have no idea how to do that. But I will try to download it and at least email it to everybody so they can see what the concerns are. And, if there is, additional concerns or change of heart, basically after you watch the PowerPoint presentation that they made. It's 52 slides or something like that, so it's quite an extensive PowerPoint presentation on why they don't feel the mouth guards are a safety, a thing to require at this for soccer. We should have that discussion, and we can have that via emails, and if we need to take a separate vote to change our process, if it makes sense, then we should probably do that. But I'll try to get that PowerPoint to everybody either tonight or first thing tomorrow morning, so you can take a look at it. There's a ton of, a ton more information that they've sent, different statistics and all that, and I'll copy everyone on all of the information that they've sent on why they made the recommendation they did and why they think it's not a good idea to have mouth guards.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is that, are they asking us to hold a special board meeting to change our minds about mouth guards for soccer?
Well, I think what they're saying is we probably should have had this information prior to tonight's meeting because it's important information on why the NHIAA decided that mouth guards were not going to be required for soccer for either boys or girls this year. After they made their presentation to NHIAA about the safety or non-safety risks, the NHIAA voted, their soccer committee voted to not require mouth guards for this particular season.
I understand.
Based on their presentation. We did not see that presentation. We don't know what the, but you're talking about some athletic directors, again, principals, superintendents that sit on this committee that listen to all of these two doctors make their presentation and said that it's appropriate for this year not to require mouth guards for soccer. And we voted opposite of that, and they're concerned that we should have probably had this information ahead of time before we made our decision.
Well, we didn't, and that's unfortunate, but I would not change my mind.
Well, I'm just saying.
I would like to see the PowerPoint.
Yeah,
So
whatever
you'll just email it.
their justification is, I think is something that we probably should have had ahead of time. So we could have had that discussion based on some medical facts and medical information that they presented that led to the vote from NHIAA to say soccer isn't required to have mouse guards this year. So,
Well, certainly respecting their information that they've provided to you. I would just say that at this point, I still stand strong against, towards the vote that I took, just knowing that the mouth guards were used for the other sports, such as football, that sort of stuff. So it will be interesting to review the information. Sure. Certainly we can take it back up in November, probably be after the fact, but.
Sure. And it could have, if they made the same presentation to the football committee and the field hockey committee, they may have had the same vote. Right. I don't know that. These two gentlemen, or at least one gentleman is a doctor and a soccer coach, and they made it to the soccer committee. So the soccer committee voted based on their presentation. Again, if it was made to the other sports, they may have had the same result, but we don't know that.
Yeah.
So, okay. All right, I think we're...
The last item is winter weather. All right, so this is the time of year, October, believe it or not, when we have to talk about winter weather. So I would like to read the letter about what happens when school is closed due to weather and how that process works. I don't flip a coin, I promise. So the letter will be posted, and it says, "Dear parents, the winter weather is upon us, and I want to remind you of the procedure we use to make the decision to hold or cancel school. Please remember that the final decision as to whether or not your children come to school is up to parents. We monitor the weather forecast daily. The decision making for a delay or snow day begins around 4 a.m. When a weather event is anticipated, our transportation supervisor is monitoring both the Maine and New Hampshire weather forecasts beginning at 4 a.m. The transportation supervisor is in touch with the road agents in all of our communities for road conditions, as well as plans for plowing, salting, and sanding. The Stratford, Carroll, and Carroll County Dispatch are also called to provide information on road conditions based on police calls, accidents, etc. Communication with bus drivers for conditions in their areas is ongoing. Additionally, we have a service called Precision Weather, which targets weather and road conditions in our specific area. It's not uncommon for WMUR to be reporting conditions that may be true for much of the state, but not targeted or accurate for our specific region. The decision to hold school is based on all of this information. School is held only in the event that the assessment indicates that buses can safely pass over the roadways. Safety is the #1 priority in making this decision. If the roads are not expected to be in good condition, in other words, buses can't pass safely by the time the bus routes normally begin, but are expected to improve to an acceptable standard within 2 hours, then the policy is to delay school for 2 hours. If it is determined that the road conditions will not be safe by 7:15 a.m., then school will be canceled. Every effort is made to get a message to you between 5:15 and 5:35 a.m., delivered through your chosen options of voicemail, text, or email. These messages are for your convenience. However, even with the most reliable system, we're still dependent on satellite technology, electricity, and the internet to get a message to you. There have been times when I haven't had internet in the morning, and that's when I start to worry about parents getting the correct messages. And usually I've been able to work it out, but you should also be not just relying on this, but also your television. There is the possibility that one of these could have problems. If you do not receive a message, please check channel WMUR or channel 6 WSCH, which lists the information about school closings. WOKQ also lists closings on their website, and several radio stations still broadcast the names of schools that are closed. We are geographically the largest district in the state. This is important for you to know because it's impossible for us to know the conditions on every road. We're not a city or a compact area. This is why we ask parents to use their discretion. If in a parent's estimation the roads from their location are not safe, then they should keep their children home from school. Students will be allowed to make up any work that has been missed, and the absence will be excused. And it's a little bit different now because we won't be having blizzard bag days, so school will proceed remotely on snow days and/or emergency days when the school buildings are closed. So no longer will you get a message, today is a blizzard bag day. School will be a remote day.
You sure?
And thank you very much for your cooperation.
A lot of parents are driving their kids to keep the bus numbers down.
And that is the end of the superintendent's report. Other than Jack, if you have anything for school boards.
The only thing for School Board Association, obviously, we're looking for any resolutions for this coming year. And at our last meeting, a week and a half ago, we discovered what the delegate assembly is going to look like this year. And it looks like we're going to try to do the delegate assembly via Zoom or, one of those other remote processes. But again, the guidelines on that based on the bylaws for the School Board Association for attendance and meeting quorums and taking votes and all of that and having active discussion on the resolutions is being worked out right now between Barrett and the legal team there. So it looks like we're going to probably have a remote delegate assembly this year. One good note is we did appoint 4 new board members this past year, this past month, which brings the number of active board members almost up to full capacity, which is nice. We haven't had that at the School Board Association in quite some time, so we have almost a full slate of candidates or board members now. So that's a good thing. Other than that, everything is remote at this point in time, so we just do the best we can. And that's all I have for there. Under superintendent,
Jack,
yes.
can I ask Kathy 2 questions under the superintendent's
Go ahead.
section? My first question is the travel route going up Route 16 into Ossipee that stretches, that's under such construction. Mm-hmm. They've really begged people to find different ways around it. I'm just wondering how it's affected our transportation.
I have not asked Mary Ann that question. I don't know if she's traveling on that route or not, Krista.
Okay.
I certainly can find that out for you.
Thank you. And my second question is, I don't remember, I'm sorry, what we said we were going to do, but October 12th is a no-school day, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a Monday. So does Cohort A just have in-school on Tuesday?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Under the chairman's section, we sent expressions of sympathy to Kathy McCabe on the passing of her husband. I don't know if you knew that or not, but her husband passed away a couple of weeks ago. To Cindy Finathy on the passing of her father, Jessica Russo on the passing of her father, and get well wishes to Paulette Armstrong. So, yeah, I had heard about Kathy McCabe's husband a couple of weeks ago, and I say a very nice man, very nice gentleman. That's all I have. Committee reports. Academic affairs. Who's up on academic affairs?
Academic affairs. It was such a lovely time tonight. The federal government has decided to change many of the policies that have been written, from the non-discrimination, equal opportunities to harassment and sexual harassment. So there have been a number of policies that Heather has needed to take on, and she's done it in conjunction with legal support. And what what we have all received is a huge packet, and all of our old policies, it's recommended that we simply put them through the shredder and start again. And of course, the federal government, because it's so supportive, has sent us some guidelines and wording that we need to follow. So there's not much leeway that we have, but Heather and the lawyer have worked on suggestions on changing the wording because there are so many overlaps. So we spent quite a bit of time as a committee going through each of these and having our own questions, which Heather beautifully answered. One of the things she did tell us is that under the harassment and non-discrimination policies, that there seems to be fewer protections for the person that is making the accusation. And the example that she gave us was that in the past, someone could almost make a blind accusation. So if it was under like a sexual harassment accusation, that the person that was accused didn't necessarily know who the accuser was. Now, under the new policy, they would know who the accuser was right away. So there are those kinds of things that are in the policy when you go and you look through it. So that was a big deal for us to be looking at. Another one of the changes was that in either of the harassment situations, the timeline, the attorney suggested that the timeline change and that we do have liberties on, and we should look at putting it up to a 40 business day time period that the situations will be investigated and handled. And he thought that since things were going to be so much tighter and there'd be more evidence and there'd be more witnesses that would be allowed to be brought, that we should expand that timeline. These are things that we're thinking about as academic affairs, and we need you to think about for the second reading, which will happen in November. Another one of the larger issues was that there's the appeals process and how many levels of appeal someone should be allowed. So those are some of the major points. Heather? She has it memorized.
Great job, Krista. Really great job. There's a lot there.
It's not working.
The only thing that I would add, Krista, from the beautiful job that you just did, is that the administrative team will partake in their first training at the end of October, on October 28th, with the attorney. It'll be a three-hour training to go over our responsibility as administrators with some of the new changes in the federal regulations. So thank you very much.
The other policy that's in here for us to consider and a second reading in November is simply going from as Kathy said, from not having blizzard bag days anymore to have them being called remote learning days. That's the only change under that policy. So if you look at them thoroughly between now and our next meeting, the second reading will be in November.
Thank you, Krista.
Yep.
Okay. Building and maintenance, Julianne.
Not much of an update from last month. Eversource is slated to be out at the Effingham site on October 14th, and we're told shortly after that we should be online, so exciting times.
Terrific. Well, the site looks great. I think they've really cool, really cool. Okay, under finance, obviously you know when our finance meetings are going to be in November to formulate the budget, and hopefully we'll get through that in a reasonably good fashion. I have nothing under human resources at this point. So we'll move on to advanced planning. If you can look down below, the open houses, no school on the 12th. Again, the open house, Crescent Lake on the 5th, Tuftonboro on the 21st, middle school and high school, the 22nd and 27th. The general elections, again, on November 3rd. That's a no school day. And our next school board meeting is November 9th. And we'll have to decide where we're going to have that, I guess. Right now, it's to be determined, so we'll decide the best place for that next meeting. Public input.
Hi, my name is Rob Ryerson, and I have a fourth grader in the district. And so this is not an anonymous message, but it's going to be pretty direct, and I think a very frank message to the school board. I sit and watch my fourth grader get about 25% of the education she should be getting in what is the most benign COVID-19 environment in this country. I look around at all the other schools in the Lakes region that are open, and I really ask, have you taken the time to really think about what the impact is on these kids not going back to school and seeing what it really means to them? So that's one. And I also would like to say, if you ask the parents, there's not one parent who doesn't want their kids back at school that I've spoken to. And if you had a vote amongst the parents, those kids would be back at school full-time right now. And I'm asking the parents who are watching this to light up your phones over the next 2 weeks to let you know exactly how they feel about the decision you took tonight. The second piece of this is when you look at the CDC guidelines, the 6-foot spacing is a recommendation. They are mitigating, and you are able to mitigate against that if you can't comply. I'm looking forward to November, where the COVID-19 situation is not going to be any different. Those CDC guidelines will not have changed one bit. So the decision you made tonight, based on the information you made on tonight, is going to be no different in November. What there is the ability to mitigate. I didn't hear one word of being able to mitigate against something that we can't solve for, because our student body isn't getting smaller, and the physical space in our classrooms sure ain't getting bigger between now and November. So I would like to, we're sitting here right now in October, and I haven't heard one word around mitigation. How can we get it so these kids can go back to school full-time and put in place the plexiglass, whatever it is that we take, the screens, whatever it takes, so they're not getting about a third of the education that they would otherwise be getting, and that the kids at the Lakes Region School are getting 100% off right now. And then thirdly, I'm all in favor of the athletics. I think it's great. I think we should be doing that. But it's so contradictory to what's going on with the academics. It's almost mind-blowing to me that we're in this situation. The kids are on a sports field, sweating and going all over each other on a sports field from all around the state. Yet, we, in a benign COVID-19 environment, cannot bring our kids back to school full-time. It makes no sense to me. It's illogical. So I apologize. It wasn't anonymous. It's very direct, but I'd ask you to think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, good evening. I'm Jim Copenhaver. I know it's late, so I'll be very brief. There was a vote earlier tonight that regards the issue of mouth guards for soccer players, and I'm here to try to address that. So I'm a father of 4 sons. They all play soccer in the community. I've been a coach for about 20 years of the game. I've played the game myself for almost 50 years. And I'm a board-certified emergency room physician. I've been practicing for about 25 years. And I can tell you, all of my faculties, everything that I've gathered in my private and professional career would argue against the use of mouth guards for soccer players this fall season. So I'm hoping that somebody can give me a little bit of data as to how and why that decision was made tonight.
You want to speak on it, Shirlene?
Are you asking me specifically to engage with this?
I apologize if I'm not aware of the formality of how this interaction goes, but I can tell you that on the soccer field, you put those mouth guards into those kids' mouth and you have them run around till they're short of breath. They grab it, they pull it out, they handle it, they stick it in their mouth. It's anything but in a mouth. There's saliva everywhere with those things. So in a COVID, I would say in a COVID pandemic, the last thing that we need to be doing is shoving an artificial appliance into some kid's mouth when he's trying to run fast, he's trying to communicate, when that's all that seems to be doing is dramatically increasing secretions being exposed to everybody else on that field. So it seems to me that if there was a decision here tonight made to make it mandatory for those youth players to put an artificial apparatus into their mouth while they're playing soccer, that seems to be, in my opinion, stark contrast to what would be the science behind how such a decision should be made, and we're exposing our kids unnecessarily. So if that vote has been made, I would like to go on record to say that that's in direct contradiction to what I believe to be a fairly objective assessment of the problem. So I'm not sure if I'm asking for a reply or whether or not I have a right to get a reply, but I'm simply making my statement and trying to bring my experience to this board so that you guys can hopefully make decisions that support our kids.
I have a question for you, sir. I understand your concern. Have soccer players ever been required to wear mouth guards in the past?
Are you making reference to this school, this league, this state, this national society?
I'm just asking the question. I mean, you know, I have, you know, one of my daughters played soccer years ago, and she always wore a mouth guard, and everyone on the team wore mouth guards. So my question is, as a sport, as the sport of soccer, for high school students or middle school students, have mouth guards ever been required?
Well, I've got a lot of experience in the game of soccer. I can tell you, in a professional level, there are no mouth guards. That's universal throughout the world, so FIFA doesn't make any statements as to whether or not they need to be used. In the youth soccer domain, US Youth Soccer, which organizes youth soccer in the United States, also makes no statement as to their use. I grew up playing soccer in Seattle. That's where I spent most of my time. I didn't become aware that mouth guards were even associated with the game of soccer till I relocated to this state in 2013. They're not required in youth sports and youth soccer. They're not required by the state of New Hampshire Youth Soccer Association. It appears to be a rule that is very unique and specific to the high school, intercollegiate high school athletic association in the state of New Hampshire. I don't believe it's supported in any other state that I've been associated with. So you can understand, since 2013, I've been confused as to why this governing body would choose to go that direction when it doesn't seem anybody else around the country does.
So the answer is yes?
So the answer is the Intercollegiate High School Soccer Association has supported the use or given schools or leagues the option of using mouth guards for the game of soccer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, while we're in this discussion, I just got, again, just to follow up on the same situation. Somebody writes, soccer players are now required to wear mouth guards, which means their saliva will be on their hands, shirts, and shorts. They don't wear helmets on which their mouth guards are attached. How can this be safe since science tells us COVID is transmitted through saliva? The board should follow the science when making decisions. Please share the NHIA report before requiring mouth guards and getting our students sick. Thanks. Again, just another comment from somebody in the.
I mean, what I would like to say is, you know, I've made a career of spending time on the youth, you know, on the fields with youth. I know exactly how they use those mouth guards when they're required to use them, and the last thing they do is stay in a mouth. That's all the referees can do, is just walk around trying to enforce it, because when you can't breathe, when you run hard, which you should in the sport that you play, especially in high school, and you can't breathe and you got something shoved in your mouth, the first thing you want to do is pull it out so you can actually catch your breath. So in my experience, a mouth guard offers only a health detriment to the kids that play it. I'm also aware of the basic science behind what's been shown and proven with mouth guards. And I can assure you that the off-the-shelf mouth guard that you can buy in the store for under $10 is worthless. It probably exposes kids to more dental injuries rather than less. The heat and conform to your mouth models that are about $20 to $30 probably are slightly better, but still offer no benefit. And if you go down to a local dentist and you pay him a couple $100 to get you a properly fitting set of mouth guards, then it may, with very careful assessment, looking at hundreds of thousands of high school athletes, may be able to offer a measurable benefit, but I can assure you it's nominal. So that's my experience.
Dr. Jim, would you like to weigh in?
Had to wait for the green light. I've been in practice 30 years. Many of the things involving use of mouth guards in any sport were considered to be limited by oral health issues. Trauma cases that we see in oral injuries are prevented, period, by any form of a mouth guard. When we have them, they don't cause an issue. Most of the literature sitting out there will allow us, excuse me, until you can respond. I'll continue. The permutation of this is the fact that over time it became corrupted. I don't want to say corrupted, that's the wrong word. It became absorbed, that's probably the better word, into the CTE, chronic traumatic encephalitis caused by chronic use of concussions. Today, that's the primary overriding factor. When I'm talking about the use of mouth guards, I'm talking about oral health injuries. Too often we see them. When I mentioned that one case that I'm personally familiar with, I never did say where the tooth was that was found. The tooth was in the head of the girl who had headbutted her. They were both going for a ball and they were going to head the ball. Now I know they're not supposed to do that anymore because of course that was considered to be a concussive issue. But they found the tooth in the girl's skull. Now, it may only be one case, but now I wouldn't want to have it happen again. And I think you should look carefully because there's an actual dental association, the ADA has a subgroup for sports medicine, and they are firmly in favor of mouth guards. We also have them explain to me the difference between field hockey and soccer. Yes, the girls are allowed sticks. That's true, but they're also not allowed to raise them above their waist. So no matter what happens, they're not going to get hit in the mouth with the stick. So there's no difference there, in my opinion, than there is in soccer. I know the state probably has not been as good about enforcing issues like this than they have in the past. But I'm willing to bet that the NHIA is not usually, they're never ahead of anybody, they're always behind. And one of the things they follow is what the Federation says. The National Federation says that they should probably wear mouth guards. I would bet that is the case in the prior. Does that help?
Well, I can tell you in my line of work as an emergency room physician, if I tried to generalize every time I saw an abnormality happen, an accident happen, and I tried to generalize, you can't. So I'm a scientist. I have to see the pattern. I have to study the problem. And I can tell you every bit of research that I can find on the topic of soccer-specific oral injuries over the past 10 years fails to identify exactly what you're alluding to. And I've played the game for 50 years, and I've never seen a dental injury. That's never. And that's thousands and thousands of adult and youth games.
I understand what you're saying. Mine is an iconic case, probably not very common at all. But I do know that there have been oral fractures, and most of it's dental injuries. It's not oral facial injuries, it's dental. Most of them occur during headbutting, or excuse me, hitting the ball. I'm not supposed to call it headbutting. But that is the case. Now, the ADA does have a very strict protocol. I agree that the mouth guard you buy in the grocery store is probably not worth much. But the vacuum form mouth guards that are available are reasonably well fitted and reasonably do work. If you wish, I will get the literature for you from the ADA. I'm more than glad to do it.
Yeah, the issue with regards to concussion, that's been proven over and over again over the past 5 to 10 years to not be addressed with mouth guards, regardless of...
Oh, I understand that, but I'm just saying, the intent was to, it got attended by the people behind the concussive injury protocols, like the CTE. That was, they took over the argument, and I agree. I'm not particularly concerned about that. I'm concerned with oral health injuries. That's what I was familiar with, and that's what I knew of for 30 years. Now, I will gladly put the ADA information up for you anytime you want it. I can find it in about 10 minutes.
Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, well, I think, thank you very much for your input. I think, we've taken a vote unless somebody wants to make a motion to change a vote. We've made our decision, right or wrong. I think it would have been, again, more beneficial if we had seen some of this information, heard some of this information beforehand, but that's not the case at this point in time. I will share all of the text messages that I have received, as well as the PowerPoint presentation. If somebody has some major concerns that they'd like to discuss, and if we need to call a special meeting or some sort of an online survey of what the board thinks after they've seen all of this, and there's some sentiment to revisit it in a very short period of time, that I think we could certainly do that. Yes.
Dr. Copenhaver, I did have a question for you. Are the soccer players supposed to be wearing masks? So to remove their mouth guards, they'd have to take their masks off and then remove the mouth guard? Or are they not required to wear masks?
There's no requirement for a mask.
I'm sorry, what?
There's no requirement for a mask.
They're not required to wear masks?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other public input? Okay. Any closing comments by board members? I'm not going to go around the table. I'm just going to ask if anybody has any closing comments. All right. Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A semicolon, paragraph 3 semicolon 2 for personnel matters.
So moved.
All right, let's take a roll call vote on that. Krista?
Yes.
Julianne?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Dr. Jim?
Yes.
Jim Pittman?
Yes.
Charlene?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Chair votes aye. Okay, we are in non-public. Thank you.